street.
Growing up, and you probably had the same situation happening, I would always have this conflict because I would always want stuff, and since I didn't understand the concept of worth and of value, I didn't understand if something was too expensive or too cheap or affordable, if anything. And I remember as kids, we used to go to Argentina every single year because as a family we would take our soccer academy to Argentina. And there was this one company called Purpura. They would always host us every single year. And I remember the guy, the owner, he would always come, and he was my dad's friend. And we would sit in a bus literally for like 16 hours, 20 hours straight, going from city to city. And I would always sit next to him and just talk to him. And one day, he told me he was gonna give me a truck, an all-wheel drive truck. And he just said, next year when you come, I'm gonna have this truck for you. And I remember I left and I was so excited, I was pumped. And I told my dad, and he's like, no, buddy, don't get your hopes up. Like, you're 8 years old, you're pretty far from driving. And I was like, no, Dad, he said next year he's gonna give me this truck. And I was super excited on it. And better yet, we went back home, and that year I started saving. Any dollar, any coin I would find, you best believe that was going in a little container. And from the little container, I would hide it under my bed. And every time I would get my hands on a $1 bill, a $5 bill, or whatever I could get my hands on, you best believe that was going in that little container. And I remember the whole year went by. I didn't tell anybody in my family. I didn't tell my dad, my mom, any of my siblings. And I remember we went back to Argentina, and I was so excited because I was taking my little container full of money, not too much, but it was full of money, and I was gonna give it to the guy, and I was gonna tell him, hey, I want to be a part of buying my truck. And I remember we got to Argentina, and I was so excited because they were picking us up from the airport because we had the whole team with us, and he was gonna show up at the bus, and I was gonna run out and give him my container and be like, hey, look, this is for my truck. And whenever the bus pulls up, I'm freaking out. I'm so excited. I'm so happy. Like, the moment I've been dreaming about all year long has finally come. And so I run out, I see him, and I get my little backpack out, and I take my little container out. I must have had, I don't know, maybe tops like $52.60 if my memory serves me right. But I was so excited, I thought I had more than enough to cover at least half of my truck. I remember I gave him this, and he kind of opened it. He's like, what is this? And I was like, this is for my truck. And he kind of opened it and saw that there was just a bunch of $1 bills and some coins, and even some currency from like different countries, because literally I would pick up whatever I found. And he kind of like laughed, and he's like, oh yeah, man, like that was a joke. And kind of patted my back and gave me my little container back. And I remember being so broken. I remember just sitting on the bus and being so sad. And my dad, I remember he came and sat right next to me, and he's like, hey buddy, what's wrong? And I was like, Dad, you remember how I told you last year that he was gonna give me a truck? And he's like, yeah. I'm like, well, I took all year and I saved up all this money, and I remember I gave my dad the little container. And he opened it, and he understood. He knows me, so he kind of like opened it, looked in, and closed it and put it aside. And he just gave me the biggest hug, and he's like, buddy, like everything happens in the right time. Like, you're not in the right time of your life to have a truck. You're barely 8 years old. But that day something happened in me, and the sense of value and the sense of worth was kind of explained to me, because later I went back to the guy and I was like why aren't you taking my money? Why aren't we doing this truck deal that we talked about? And he's like, look, that's just not enough. And for the first time in my life, I was introduced to the concept of not being enough, of not having enough, and really starting to understand the value scale of stuff in life. And obviously the more you grow up, and you're probably sitting there watching this, and you know what it feels like to not be enough. You know what it feels like to not have enough. But I love the words of Jesus, because he says, my grace is enough. And I've been thinking about that a lot, especially now in this time of quarantine. Just think about this. The moment you start walking with Jesus, the moment you decide to cross the line of faith, the moment that you decide to say, hey, you know what? God, we're doing this together. I'm giving my life to you. The Bible says that you receive this gift that you can never purchase by yourself, that you can never acquire this by yourself. You get this thing called grace. And I love it because Jesus says, hey, my grace is enough. So you're probably sitting there, and I just want you to start thinking, think of your wildest dream and what it would require for you to achieve it, what it would require for you to get there. Like, what type of sacrifice would you have to do? What type of stuff would you have to lay down? What type of sacrifices would you have to make? Or what stuff would you have to pick up? Like, what would it cost? Like, everything good in life will cost you a lot. And even if you're sitting there thinking about this, I also want you to consider the fact that anything that's easy is definitely not worth it. So if you're trying to get like a quick dream, a quick result, a quick answer, make sure things cost you something. And I love the words of King David in the Bible, where he wants to give an offering to God, and he goes on to say, like, I will not give anything to God that will not cost me something. So I want you to go back to what we were talking about. Like, think about that crazy dream. Like, what's your biggest dream? What would it cost you to achieve it? And as you're thinking, even start writing stuff down. Like, what would happen if you had what it takes and you had enough to get that right now? Like, it'd be insane. Better yet, I guarantee you're probably listening to this and you're thinking about this stuff, and you're probably getting excited because you know your dream. So imagine if your life had enough and was enough to achieve that right now. It'd be crazy. It'd be insane. Your life would automatically step into a completely different level. So think of the words of Jesus when he says, like, my grace is enough. And let me break that down for you. What he's saying is, you have enough for whatever comes your way for the rest of your life. Like, that's insane. Like, if you think about that, your starting point in this walk with Jesus is already having enough. Therefore, like, what else do you need? Like, that should have been enough for him to be like, you know what? My grace is enough. Let's call it a day. Boys, let's keep moving. But I love him, because he doesn't stop there. He goes, my grace is enough, and my strength is made perfect in your weakness. And that just made me think a lot more, because if you really, really, really sit there and think hard, especially now in quarantine, I guarantee you so many people are struggling with depression, anxiety, loneliness. You're probably sitting there with your family, and you might not even have a good relationship with your family. But he says, my strength is made perfect in your weakness. And man, I guarantee you, a lot of you, if not most of you, maybe all of you, you're feeling some type of weakness right now. And I love the words of Jesus, because not only do we have enough, but for the moments that we don't feel like we're enough, he comes in and says, hey, you know what? My strength, like everything that I am, everything that I hold, everything that embodies who I am, is made available to you when you're feeling at your worst. And if you read that, it's found in 2 Corinthians chapter 12. And it's Paul talking about like what God has said to him. And he says like that this is what God spoke to me. And he goes on to say, I have this handicap in life, but now after hearing those words, I rejoice. So think about that. That's insane. Like, who rejoices? Who is happy? Who celebrates bad things in life? I guarantee you, when this quarantine started, you were not celebrating. God knows I wasn't. I was stuck in Colombia in a tiny apartment, borderline losing my mind. But that's where God met me. And I've had the most amazing God moments throughout this quarantine. But Paul says, like, I rejoice in my troubles. And he describes other words to basically talk about his depression, his financial instability, the moments of hardship that he's going through. And the reason why he's able to rejoice is because he knows that when he's feeling the least of who he is when he's about to experience the most of who he is. And I love that. And that's so applicable to right now, because I guarantee you, you're probably sitting there not feeling your most. You're probably feeling at your least. You're probably hitting rock bottom, whether it might be emotionally, whether it might be mentally, or maybe even physically, because God knows we're eating. Quarantine comes with some pounds. We're eating, we're just sitting at home, and I just want you to remember and be encouraged. His grace is enough, so you're already starting with everything that you need to be the person that you were designed to be. And if you're not living up to that standard, don't worry. Jesus says, hey, my strength is made perfect in your weakness. So if you're feeling weak, if you're feeling like you're not enough, if you're feeling depressed, lonely, anxious, better yet, in Philippians 4, Paul again says, don't be anxious about anything, but in everything, like pray about everything. And he says with thankfulness, like be, and even tying on and paralleling to what he's saying, with thankfulness, like be happy about what's happening. Be happy, or try to get a bigger picture, a different perspective on the situation that you're going through, because when you're at your weakest, that's when his strength is coming in. And that's something Paul understood. And I think if we can begin to wrap our heads around that right now, in this time of quarantine, in this time of trouble, I guarantee you God will meet you right where you're at. And your situation might not change, but man, your perspective definitely will. And what you get out of this situation will